Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. It's spring and there are things to do to get ready for the growing season. We have a checklist to get your garden ready. Also, we will be pruning figs. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Joellen Diamond. Joellen is the Director of Landscape at the University of Memphis, and Mr. Bill Covart will be joining me later. All right, spring is here, right?
Finally, yes.
Finally, yes.
Yes.
So what do we need to do to get our garden ready for spring?
Well, one of the first things that I like to do is go out to the perennials and cut anything down that has died from the year before. I collect it, and whatever is not diseased, I go ahead and put that in the compost pile.
Okay, makes sense to me.
Another thing to do is usually about late winter, early spring, the ornamental grasses, the leaves start breaking up and falling everywhere. So to prevent that, it's good to go ahead and cut them down. Now, cutting them is relative because some of them are 10 feet tall, so you don't have to cut them clear to the ground.
Okay.
But just cut off the majority of the leaves on whatever size of perennial grass that you have. And then, again, if it's not diseased, put it in the compost pile.
Okay. Let me ask you a question about that. So what would you use to cut the ornamental grasses?
Well, people use different things. Head shears people have used. I've seen people have the blades on a weed eater that they'll just trim around with it. Some people just use head shears and just hand, prune them down like that. So whatever, means that you have, but it's best to cut them down because you don't want them to, they're just going to go everywhere and make your yard look messy.
Okay, good.
So get those down. Also, it's also time to cut monkey grass or liriope down. There's a reason for that, though, because if you'll see on it, almost all of them have some kind of little brown spots and stuff, but of course that's anthracnose. And you've got to cut it and remove it and get rid of it. You don't put that in the compost pile.
Right.
If you have a chronic problem with it during the year, you may want to start spraying it bi-weekly with chlorothalonil product, but you're going to have to do it for several months. Bi-weekly for several months to get that under control.
Yeah, and read the label on that, please.
Definitely read the label. Follow the directions. After you're cleaning up your perennial beds and your perennials like that, if you have some parts of the country, you have to actually wrap some tender perennials. They'll put straw down in them like roses and stuff. You need to unwrap them because if we start getting spring rains, it could cause rot problems in there. So we just want to get those unwrapped as soon as possible. And as far as spring, is the second best time to plant trees and shrubs. Or anything. Fall is the best because you got the warm weather and you have the warm soil, which encourages root growth. In the spring, you may not have the warm soil so much, but you've got pleasant temperatures and it's still cool enough that you've got enough chance with the spring rains to get the roots established in the beds before the summer comes.
Okay, that's good to know.
So second best time to plant plants. And of course there's fruit trees.
Oh, yeah.
If you have fruit trees, it's best to prune them before the buds and leaves come out on them. So you can see crossing branches and just see the form of the tree. Horticulture oil would be a good thing to put on the plant after you finish pruning it. This will keep down scales and mites and things that come out, before the flowers appear on the fruit trees. And then, of course, follow the guidelines of your local extension agent. They'll have a fruit and nut tree spray program. Just follow that and read the labels on your chemicals that you're going to apply for your particular fruit tree. Lawns. Cool season grasses like Kentucky bluegrass and fescues are great to plant during this time of year because the night temperatures are in the 50s and 60s, which is ideal for them to germinate. So renovating your lawn with cool season grasses is good, plus just renovating your lawns. Sometimes people will dethatch in the spring and apply, top dressings and fertilizer a little later. So great time to renovate lawns is in the spring.
Okay.
pruning ornamental trees
there we
like
go.
crepe myrtles. Again, like the fruit trees, they don't have leaves on them, so you can see all of the branching pattern. It's a lot easier to cut it this time of year. And if you need to keep it under control of a certain size, hopefully you've gotten a variety that gets the ultimate size that you want. But if you don't, you can prune it down this time of year and see the branching pattern.
And I would make sure you inspect your crepe myrtles for crepe myrtle bark scale too.
Yes.
Just in case.
Because you can spray some
Yeah.
horticulture oil before the leaves appear
Yes.
to control that.
Yes.
Now, the big one, vegetable gardens.
Yes. This is what everybody wants to do.
Everybody
right?
wants to
That's
get
right.
into the veg. So cool season crops are great to start in the spring. Root vegetables like carrots and turnips, beets, parsnips, radishes, and then of all your leafy greens like your lettuces, your endive, your radicchio, arugula, spinach, all good time of year to plant. Your cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, collards, Brussels sprouts. In fact, we have this part of the country, we don't have that severe a winter usually.
Usually, right?
Usually.
Right.
And so I planted broccoli this last fall,
cool.
and I've just this last week have harvested another whole section of broccoli.
Nice,
so
nice.
yeah, good time of year for that. Also some kohlrabi green peas. I've just planted some green peas in my garden. I have a nice cattle fencing put up, and I put a row on each side of the cattle fencing, and that'll grow up and do well this spring. Fava beans, and of course, if you're in the heat zones, probably 7 through 10, potatoes. This is a good time of year just to plant potatoes and harvest them before it gets hot outside. And of course, don't forget your covers. If you want to start something early and you have a freeze that comes along, then you want to cover your seedlings. Those row covers that are made of fabric, usually white type of fabric. There's different grades of them, a thickness. So that would help to keep your crops from freezing if you've got that. And of course, now is also available blueberries and raspberries, grapes, and other small fruits like that you can go ahead and plant because it's time to plant those here.
Those are good.
In the spring. Now, of course, when the ground warms up, this is important. The ground has to get warm, probably closer to 70 degrees as possible, because you want to plant your summer blooming bulbs.
Summer blooming
bulbs are planted in the spring, but you got to wait till the temperatures of the soil are warm enough. And this is like caladiums, gladiolas, dahlias, iris, lily of the valley, and crocosmia, things like that. Bulbs that bloom in the summer. And of course, then evergreens. It's good to plant, to cut evergreens in the late spring.
Late spring.
You want to wait till it warms up just a little bit. And of course, this year, it's like my house, that cold temperatures that we don't normally get here. I know Texas, clear up through the Mid-South area, we got cold temperatures that we don't normally get.
Yes.
So I have a lot of my evergreens that are burned from that.
So do I.
So I would wait. I want to make sure that the buds start coming out and I see where it's still alive before I cut something that's dead off. And then that same is true for hydrangeas. I mean, some hydrangeas you prune in the spring, some you don't. But anything that's dead you can prune, but you got to wait till it comes out and buds out before you cut that off.
Okay. Good points.
Other things to do in the spring would be, you got to get your pool ready, your irrigation systems, your solid surfaces, clean up your steps and get the algae off of everything. Just a whole bunch of little things like that you can get done in the spring.
All right, so that's our spring checklist.
Spring checklist.
Sounds good to me. All right, thank you, Joella. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Amendment. All right, we're not talking about to the Constitution, right?
right.
We're talking about horticulture and gardening. Okay, when people talk about amendments, they're talking about things they add to their soil to improve it. That could be fertilizers to improve the fertility. It could be things that change the structure to make it retain water or hold water, whichever's needed.
Okay.
Could be peat moss, compost, any kind of really good organic matters you looked at as an amendment. Gin trash, you know, leaf mold, things like that. So that's what we mean when we say it could be lime.
Okay.
You know.
Sand even.
Well, yeah, lime and sulfur if you want to lower the pH, if you got blueberries or something. So anything that's added to the soil to improve it for the plant you're growing.
All right, so I'm here with Mr. Bill. We're at the Memphis Botanic Garden, and we're going to prune some figs.
What's left of some figs.
What's left of some figs. All right.
We've already had a abnormally warm spring
Yes, we have.
before spring got here, in fact. And figs, which are a tender plant, had started to put out. Normally, they would not have produced any fresh leaves until at least May,
Wow.
and some of them in June. So we've had an unusual growth. We also had 4 days of cold weather, extremely cold for this time of year, last week. And so on our fig trees, we have what only a few days ago was a nice green new growth as far as the fig is concerned. Now, we have 2 things here as far as taking care of the figs. If you prune too early, which we're not going to prune too early for this year just because of the give and take of the weather, these have died back, and at this time we don't know to what extent, because each one of these leaf nodes, which is just a little lump right on the side of the tree, is a potential for a bud.
Okay.
These budded out and then got hit with 34 degrees weather, and being a very tender plant, it just curled up and died on us and dried out in a few days. Now, some of the figs have not put out at all. Do not be concerned if yours doesn't.
Okay.
In fact, the one that hasn't put out yet may be in better shape than the one that did and then got frozen back.
Okay.
But there again, that's not for the homeowner to worry about, because even if we had to say this tree is not going to bear for the year, and why are we even fooling with it, you can take a saw 4 or 5 inches off the ground, take the whole thing out, and before the season is over, if you treated it properly, it will be anywhere from 6 to 8 feet tall.
All right, Mr. Bill, we're going to let you have at it. We're going to let you
Okay.
start pruning this fig tree for us.
Well, first thing we need to look at on this tree, we want a good sturdy branch to support the bulk of the tree. When you look at this, it had at one time a single trunk.
Okay.
Now, from the old trunk dying out, the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, about 14 small ones down there, you don't want that.
Okay.
So you select, this is one of the sturdier ones, that's a sturdy one down at the base.
Okay.
But those others that are laying on the ground, that's what they're going to do when they mature.
Oh, okay.
They get up here and run out like these little bunchy ones here. As they grow, the weight will get to them. They're down at the ground anyway. It'll pull it to the ground and pop the stump out.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So you want to pick out 2 or 3, maybe 4, and take out all the immature ones around it. These leaf nodes right here are pointing all different directions. If you cut it in here where the leaf nodes are thick, you're going to get a burst of little limbs in there. Very desirable for a small tree.
Okay.
And you want limbs with leaf nodes for making fruit, not a long, spindly plant like this one is coming. All right, if you want to have figs to eat, but you don't have a huge amount of space, then you might want to come in here about head height and do your cutting. The problem is if you do your cutting too soon, as some of us had done, because I had to, I was shaping my tree for visual effect as well as bearing fruit.
Okay.
But by pruning it back early, this is a fairly hollow stem right here. And if you get a little moisture in there and then the frost with it, it'll just explode the limb on occasion if it's extreme. So we've got 6 liters here.
Yeah.
I would take 2 more out, but
Okay.
most gardeners do not prune as much as needed to be pruned. They're always afraid they're going to ruin the plant, whether it's a fig plant, any of the fruits that are clustered on there. You're doing yourself a disfavor if you don't thin them out. The ones over here at the Botanic Gardens, when we had an orchard here, we had a general rule of 5 inches apart on fruit.
Okay.
People get very upset when you tell them that, but you'll have more poundage of fruit if you properly pruned it than if you just let it stay there. Also, when you make a cut this severe, pick out which way you want the replacement limb to come. You've got a marker there already on the plant where the leaf node's going to come out. So that one, if cut off here, is going to go this direction.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you can get several leaf nodes in here on a cut like that, then you come up with a lot more fruiting, because this is going to throw a cluster of new growth.
Okay. Gotcha.
If you want to root you some plants from this, 5 neat leaf nodes from your trimming, at least 2 leaf nodes, I prefer 3, below soil level and 2 above, so that you get a place for the first green limbs to come out. So that's just the basic on it.
Yeah.
That one doesn't need to be in here at all. It's running parallel to the ground, not upright.
Okay. There you go.
Okay, so
So
we
that comes out.
started coming around and one more cut. And now we got to take that one out. Someone that needs a plant, you pick it up. There are not any roots on that one, so we can take the whole thing out. And that is basically the shape, a basic shape,
Basic shape. All right.
where it rounds out.
Mr. Bill, we appreciate that demonstration.
This last fall, before we had killing frost, I decided to take some cuttings of my coleus, and they have rooted. And instead of just putting them right down in the ground, I like to pot them up in a container for a few weeks and then put them in the ground. When you're taking them out of the container, the roots are all tangled, so you have to gently separate each of the stalks from the other roots of the other plants. When we put these roots, new roots, into the soil is moist, like the roots are moist, and then when we get through planting it, we'll water them. That way the roots won't have any kind of shock going from just straight water to a container. These are all in one container, and they're not going to be in here for just a few weeks, and we'll have to gently take them apart and to separate each plant when we plant it in the ground. Now these are nicely potted up, and in a few weeks it'll be the right temperature to put them outside in the garden.
All right, Joellen, this is our Q&A segment. You ready?
I'm ready.
These are great questions. All right, let's start with the first one. My grapevines have black rot. What is the best way to get rid of it, and how do I prevent it from coming back? And this is Jamie from Colliers, West Virginia.
Wow.
All right, how about that? So we're talking about her grapevines and black rot. Black rot is a serious disease of grapes.
Yes.
Okay. You will get reddish brown splotches on those leaves.
Mm-hmm.
The fruit itself will become mummified.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what you have to do, right? Got to prune. Make sure you have good air circulation
Yes.
to get those leaves dried off. Practice good sanitation. You have any diseased parts of this plant, get it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You can use fungicides. So we talked about a spray schedule before.
Yes.
Yeah. So check with your local extension office. Get you one of those spray schedules. Orchard spray is probably what it's going to be, or a fruit tree spray or something like that. But
Yes.
it has to contain something like Captan, Immunox, or Mancozeb. Okay. Just read and follow the label on that. Apply that according to the label, and you should be fine. But again, this is a serious disease. Black rot is of vines, right?
Yes.
Okay. Attacks all plant parts.
It's yeah. I've gotten some when in the extension office when I was in there. Yeah. And
It's tough.
the thing is, you have to continue to spray. It's not like just one-time spray.
No.
It's a continual season-long spray you have to apply.
It's going to be multiple applications, and the intervals are probably 10 to 14 days. It'll be on the label. Just
Yes.
read your label. But do know that this is a serious disease. And something else I like to mention too, look for resistant varieties.
There are some out there, yes.
Look for those. So
Yes.
yeah, practice good sanitation, good airflow, look for resistant varieties, get rid of all the diseased plant parts. Jamie, and you will be fine.
Yes.
Thank you for that question. All right, here's our next viewer email. How do I get phlox seed to grow? And this is Nancy. So can you get phlox seed to grow?
Yes, you can. The thing is, though, phlox seed requires darkness to germinate.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of times, the seed packets will have on them how to, what temperature that the seed likes to be at, and the depth. Like I think it's an eighth of an inch on covered.
Okay.
But to ensure that it germinates, I would put a black piece of plastic over the germination tray.
Oh, okay.
That will ensure that it's dark. But it only takes 10 to 11 to maybe 21 days. So I would put it down and I would check it every about 5 to 10 days and just see if anything is germinated. And as soon as it has, you've got to take the black plastic off.
Okay.
And now that also helps it act like a greenhouse underneath
Right.
on the flat. So you don't necessarily have to have a grow light to start these because they like darkness at first.
Okay.
But then once you start seeing the plants come up, you're going to have to put them in some light.
Okay, you put them in some
But there's a certain amount of temperature and moisture requirement for them. And phlox is just one of those that's kind of picky about that.
Okay.
So that's just read the label of how the seed says it needs to be germinated, or just make sure you cover it with darkness for a few days.
So it has to have that darkness. What about
Darkness.
soil media?
Yeah, and germination mix, just
Germination
a
mix.
nice germination mix, and get it moist, and
Yeah,
then
not too
put that
wet.
black plastic over the top of it, and then check it every 5 to 10 days, and it will probably start germinating.
Wow. Okay, how about that? So you can grow
You can
phlox.
grow phlox from seed.
seed.
Yes.
There you go, Miss Nancy. How about that? Thank you for that question. All right, here's our next viewer email. The trunk of our curly willow is staying so small, we have to keep it staked. Do I need to trim the limbs until the trunk gets bigger? And this is Bunny. Now, let's go back here for a second. So the trunk is staying small. I wonder if it's been staked this whole time.
Well, that's a good question. We don't know because we don't have a picture.
Right. I remember you telling us this before, right? So what makes the trunk strong,
Yeah,
right?
we have to.
And
The
grow.
trunk has to move just a little bit because it has to produce reaction wood
Right.
to make it stand up straight. And if it's staked the whole time, it never develops that reaction wood. So when you take the stake off, it'll just fall over.
Right.
But, you know, I don't know. Also, does it have one central leader? Or does it have a whole bunch of branches that are trying to lead to be the tall tree?
Okay.
And if that's true, then I wouldn't cut them off, but I would cut them back and leave one to be the central leader, because, you know, this is apical dominance. You know, something's got to lead, and
Sure.
you've got to make sure that one of them is going to be the leader.
Okay. All right. So there's a couple of things going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a picture really
Yeah,
help
it's
us out
nice
a little
to have
bit.
a picture.
Right. But yeah, you don't want to keep these, trees staked forever.
No, not
Right.
forever.
'Cause, yeah, they need to build up that girth, right?
Yeah,
All right. All right, y'all. That was fun. Good
it
question.
was.
Thank you much. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us. If you want to learn more about anything we talked about today, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. We have over 1,000 videos to help you make your garden the best that it can be. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.